we're talking about some of the different top woods you'd use for a guitar, and Mark's got a couple things here he wants to tell us about.
Yeah, this is the way top woods look when I get them. It's usually 2 pieces, cut pretty thin. You see that? About this size. Put them together, and it's big enough for a guitar top. Pretty much all guitar tops are joined down the middle. This is a piece of Engelmann spruce. I've measured its density at 6.2 grams per cubic inch.
Okay.
Which gives me a feel for how it relates to other woods in a general sense.
So the top generally has to be pretty flexible in order to let sound travel through it.
Not necessarily.
Okay. A little flexible, huh?
You want the right amount of... Well, it has to vibrate.
That's the ratio you're talking about, though, right? Is side to length bendability or not?
Yeah. Well, one of the first things I look at is density.
Okay.
And we talked a little bit about the heavy-handed versus the light-handed player.
Yeah.
This particular piece is on the medium-light side. So your average fingerstyle player, this would be a good top.
Okay. And so where does Engelmann spruce come from?
This Engelmann comes from Western Canada, I believe.
And is that pretty much a North American...
Engelmann is North American wood, yeah. It grows from Western Canada down the Rockies, all the way down to New Mexico.
Yeah.
But
right.
Most of what you find in the markets for guitar wood comes from Canada.
Yeah.
Just because there's enough trees out there. Enough trees up there for the woodcutters to make a business out of it.
Here we cut them down and put houses where they used to be.
I do have some nice Engelmann that came from New Mexico that was cut by a guitar builder there. Just happened to find a nice log, so he made some sets.
Yeah.
And I have some that came from Montana that a local woodcutter there just happened to cross when he was cutting firewood. Yeah. It's all good.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is an average piece of spruce. You know, nice. And one of the things I look at is the stiffness this way. I flex it. That's the long grain stiffness. And then I'll flex it sideways, gently, so I don't split it.
Right.
And I can feel the difference in stiffness there. And I evaluate that ratio. And that helps me decide what size, what body size guitar this would be a good piece of wood for. So the two are interrelated.
Right.
The stiffness ratios in the spruce and the size guitar that will work best.
Right. So if you're going to need more wood, you're going to have to look for a slightly different ratio, maybe, huh?
Well, if I'm building a wider bodied guitar, I'm going to want the cross grain stiffness to be stiffer than I would want it for a narrower guitar.
It's got a little more surface area involved.
Yeah, there's a certain ratio that's good, and the ratio of the guitar length and width changes with body size.
Yeah.
Guitar body sizes change more in width than they do in length.
Yeah.
As they get smaller.
Right.
Yeah. So I try to match up the stiffness ratios in the wood to the length and width ratios of the guitar body.
So that's pretty much a constant with whatever you decide to work with. You know, so whether you're working with
every guitar and every top, I do that.
Right.
Yeah. No matter what.
Okay, so that's, and now what do you have here?
This is a piece of Western red cedar. So if you see a dark top guitar, unless it's been colored or stained.
This is the color it comes from the tree?
This is its natural color.
Wow.
Yeah. And it varies. Sometimes it's a little more yellow, a little lighter. But typically Western red cedar looks about like this.
Yeah.
This is the stuff the shingles on your house are made of.
I was just going to say, it reminds me of...
It's the same wood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great guitar wood. That must mean it's cheap too, right?
It is fairly inexpensive as top woods go.
Yeah.
Yeah. About half of what spruce would cost.
Okay.
Yeah. And cedar is much lighter usually in density, so it's good for a light-handed player, with a light attack.
Mm-hmm.
It tends to have a fairly soft lengthwise stiffness.
It looks like you're bending it more than you were the spruce with the same amount of pressure.
It might be thinner too, but typically cedar doesn't have as much long grain stiffness as spruce does.
Okay.
This cross grain stiffness can be quite high, relatively speaking.
Okay.
And so it works good for medium, larger size guitars. Sometimes it also works good on really small ones just because it's so light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so where does that grow generally natively?
Western red cedar in the west.
That would be like Nevada and Wyoming?
No, it's
places where
a
they have
coastal
trees.
wood.
Yeah.
It's a coastal wood like redwood.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we probably have it here in Northern California.
Northern California, up into Oregon, Washington, I think even up in Alaska and Western Canada.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
You won't find it in Wyoming.
Yeah. Or many other trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. And this is a piece of European spruce, back to the spruces, but this one's heavier and stiffer than the Engelmann I showed you earlier. So if I were putting this on a guitar, I'd probably put it on something for a little bigger guitar, maybe for a heavy-handed player. Somebody with a strong attack.
Now, I hear people talk about more specific European spruce as Italian or German or Swiss.
Yeah, they're all the different colors.
Is that kind of what it is?
And they all vary a little bit. But they tend to fall within a certain range of density and stiffness.
Okay.
It's pretty subtle.
Yeah. So are they relatively similar to the Engelmann or significantly different?
The European spruces are pretty close to Engelmann.
That's okay.
Yeah. For a while, even Engelmann was being sold as European spruce by the wood counterfeiters.
Oh, nice.
Because
it's
really hard to tell the difference.
That's
looking at it. I mean, it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
And its mechanical characteristics and its color are so similar that I keep them labeled or I get them mixed up.
Yeah. Got it.
Not that it really matters, because
if somebody wants one and you give me other...
If the woods are more or less equivalent, what difference does it make?
Right.
What species name is?
Yeah, well, my guitar has an imported top.
Yeah. And then if you want, you can get into figured woods for tops.
Okay.
This is a piece of what they call sinker redwood.
Sinker?
Sinker, I don't know. I think it's from something that was sunken once.
Like Sinker?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sinker redwood.
Or they were logs that were dredged up out of a riverbed or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. It tends to be a little bit heavy as redwood goes. It's somewhat mineral. It's got mineral deposits and stuff.
Yeah, so if you want a little more design on your top.
Yeah, and these can look really cool.
Yeah.
You get one with nice striping.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people like figured top. Another thing that you can get into is bear claw, where you have those weird stripy look and things all over.
Yeah, we'll talk about bear claw separately, because I got a couple questions about that.
Yeah, but that covers the basics of top woods. You have your spruces, your cedars, and your redwood. I didn't have a piece of redwood here, but it's very similar to cedar.
I thought that was...
this is redwood. Yes, I did have redwood.
Right.
It's also
we had the western redwood. Yeah.
So your cedars and redwoods and your spruces.
And redwood and spruce are fairly similar?
Yeah, fairly.
Redwood's even a little softer, though?
No.
Okay, it's the other way around?
It can be either side.
Either one can range?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've never seen a wood vary as much as redwood. In density, in hardness, in stiffness, it's all over the map.
Yeah.
You really have to evaluate it on a piece-by-piece basis.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me ask you one more thing about tops. Adirondack.
Yes.
So we didn't really touch on that, but that's a part of the spruce family.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's at the dense and heavy, stiff end of the spectrum.
Yeah. So would it be the densest, heaviest one, pretty much?
Generally speaking.
So if you're looking for that guitar for the heavy-handed guy, that's the first thing, like you said earlier.
Yeah.
That's your first recommendation is think about Adirondack, because it'll stand up to what you're trying to do with it.
Absolutely.
Okay. And it's sometimes called red spruce or something too. Is that right?
It's scientifically it's red spruce.
Okay.
It's not Adirondack spruce. I mean, to be Adirondack, it has to be red spruce, and it has to have grown in the Adirondacks in New York.
Right.
Yeah. So they are different.
Okay.
Adirondack is like a subgrouping of red spruce.
It's a vineyard designation.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah, somewhat, yeah. Red spruce grows all down the Appalachian Mountains, and it grows in Europe a little bit, I think.
And so the characteristics of the ones outside Adirondack versus the ones that are officially there is minimal.
Well,
or they can all range.
It can range.
Same thing.
I have found that as you go farther south in the Appalachian, the red spruce tends to get lighter. It becomes more and more like European spruce.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
And is it called red because it's partial? It's because it's a darker color than these yellowish ones.
When it's mature, it's prone to this reddish streak.
Okay.
Streakiness that goes through it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, would you see that typically in a top that you're going to use for a guitar?
Oh yeah.
It's okay, and that's a lot of times what would be its identifying characteristic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
A lot of red spruce gets rejected by the woodcutters because the streaking's really ugly. It tends to turn kind of brown under finish. So you have this beautiful, honey-colored top with these brown streaks in it.
Yeah.
And sometimes they won't be symmetrical either, so you have just this big ugly blotch on one side.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that stuff goes in the fire.
Yeah. That's killing.
Although every once in a while, the top will come along where the streaking is really beautiful.
Right.
In fact, I built a guitar a while back that we call Big Red. There are pictures of it on my website.
Okay.
Where it had streaking all through it and it had this swirly thing that was very symmetrical. It was absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that I ordered about 10 tops from this company. And to protect the 10 good tops I ordered, they took a junk one and slapped both pieces, one on either side of the stack, banded it and sent it to me. Well, it turns out those 2 scrap pieces not only were the best tonally in the whole thing, but they were so ugly they were beautiful.
Yeah. So they threw you a couple of premium pieces of wood.
They threw me an absolute gem as packing material.
That is great.
Yeah, pictures on my website. It's big red in the gallery section.
And what? Okay. What size body did you end up making for that?
That was a Sequoia, big one.
Relatively big.
It was a stiff, heavy piece of wood, and it went to a player who's very heavy-handed.
Yeah.
Likes to beat on the thing and just snap strings, and
right.
I'm surprised he doesn't just tear them right off the guitar.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Thanks for all the info on tops.
Yeah. You're welcome.